Hello, my students. Greetings of the day. Welcome to Bangla Shikha Classroom 2025, an endeavor of Poschim Bongo Samogro Shikha Mission under the Government of West Bengal Education Department. I am Mita Dotto, Assistant Teacher of Dokhinesha Sri Sri Sharoda Devi Balika Vidya Mandir. Today, we are going to do the lesson 1, The Casuarina Tree, from poem Open Your Books to a Realm of English B selection, class 12, semester 3, that you are going to do after some days. You are going to sit for the exam after some days. So please open to page 81, lesson 1 of Casuarina Tree. Now, before we begin any poem or any literary piece, we need to know a little about the writer. Here, Torulata Datto, who is popularly known as Toru Datto, was born on 4th March 1856 and she died on 30th August 1877. She was a Bengali poet. She was an Indian, belonged to British India. She wrote both in English and French, and she was well known as a translator too. She was one of the founding figures of Anglian literature, Indo-Anglian literature, and her poem, they are very popular and they usually explore the themes of loneliness, longing, patriotism, and nostalgia. All of these factors we are going to explore in her poem as we proceed. Datta died just at the age of 21 of tuberculosis, and in the course of the poem, we will come to know that her siblings died before her. Now, this is the Casuarina tree, which the poem is about. The picture in the middle is of the Casuarina tree fruits, and the two besides are the huge Casuarina tree of which the poem is all about. Now, to know about this poem, this is a nostalgic poem and autobiographical poem. You know what an autobiography is? An autobiography is when a person writes herself or himself about something of her life. So the tree is deeply rooted in the poet's memories of her childhood, and the poem revolves around the sorrow that she has about her brother and sister who are now dead. And the tree is associated with all the happy times that they spent together when they were children. So the Casuarina tree actually becomes a very prominent symbol of the poet's happiness in the past, her homeland. Why homeland? Because she had been for her studies in France and Italy for quite some time of her life. And there she is reminded of her homeland India and also the rich traditions of Indian culture. And Toru Datto, when we read the poem, we will see that she has taken this symbol of Casuarina tree not because of its huge and majestic appearance, but because the Casuarina tree for her is a symbol of happiness that she had under it with her loved ones and her brother and sister. Aru and Abju were their names. Abju, Oru, Toru, they were the three brothers and sisters who spent very happy moments under it together. The poem is characterized by a very intense connection with nature and its surrounding. As we proceed through the poem, we will see that not only the majestic appearance of the tree is described, but the life that grows in the tree, the life that is around the tree, all the beauty of it is very vividly described, and along with it, there is a touch of melancholy. When she remembers the vastness of the tree, the happiness that the happy times that they spend under the tree, there is also a sense of sorrow that that time is gone, that happy time is gone. And that employs vivid sensory imageries to paint a picture of the tree and its environment. I will describe to you in details as we go into the stanzas of the poem, like how she has used the words huge python, crimson clusters, sweet song to create an immersive experience. An immersive experience is that experience in which, as we go through the poem, we actually, through the words of her poetry, reach that experience, like start to feel that experience which she is writing with words. She is drawing a pen picture. And the poem consists of 5 stanzas, each with 11 lines. The language is very poetic and the language is very reflective, like we are, along with the words used, we can recall that time that actually Toru Datto had with her friends and her siblings. And it is also very sentimental because it has strong sentiments attached to every word she speaks. In Madhyamik, you have all read the lesson Our Runaway Kite. There you saw how the author, without relatives, without her cousins, were so lonely. But when, because of the kite, he got united with his sister and brother, he was so happy to have relatives. So we all know the impact and the emotion that we have around our close and loved people. So regarding the theme explores loss of her brother and sister, and along with it, the power of the tree, the power of nature to provide solace, because now the picture of the tree, now the thought of the tree is bringing back to her the memories of happy times, though she is at a loss now. Now we directly go to the stanza 1 of the poem. Please open your books and follow the lines as I read it. Like a huge python winding round and round, the rugged trunk indented deep with scars, up to its very summit near the stars. A creeper climbs, in whose embraces bound no other tree could live. But gallantly the giant wears the scarf, and flowers are hung in crimson clusters, all the boughs among, whereon all day are gathered bird and bee. And oft at nights the garden overflows with one sweet song that seems to have no close, sung darkling from our tree, while men repose. So here you can see a picture of a tree around which some very strong climbers and creepers are going around the tree. So it's like a huge python, a huge snake, a huge fat snake, which is winding the tree around. And what happens? This creeper is so strong that it creates deep marks of wounds in the tree. Many trees would have died in this condition, but the casuarina tree is bravely surviving even the strong bounds of this creeper. And it's like the giant wears the scarf. So here we see the use of metaphor and similes. Those are the figures of speech, the ornaments in literature which decorate a poem. So what is a simile? A simile is that figure of speech in which a direct comparison is made between two things. And what is a metaphor? A metaphor is that figure of speech in which an indirect comparison is made. So the huge python here is a simile. The creeper is directly compared to a snake which is winding up around the tree. And here the line, the phrase, the giant wears the scarf. Just as a human being wears a scarf to protect itself or to decorate himself or herself, to make herself or himself look good, the giant here refers to the casuarina tree, whose huge presence is like a giant. And this giant is wearing a scarf. What is the scarf? The climber that is actually trying to throttle it is to it just like a scarf, and it's very usual, and the tree is flourishing in this condition with no problems. The creeper is creating just no wound, and the flowers are hung in crimson crystals. The flowers are as usual in the boughs of the tree, and you know when a tree is full of fruits, flowers and boughs, many birds and bees gather, and there are a lot of lively and sparkling noises around. Even in the nights, the garden overflows with one sweet song. Maybe some beetle or some insect that keeps singing all the night and seems to have no end. And that song to the poet seems a little morose, a little full of sorrow, because she has that melancholy thought in her mind. And when at night all men are at sleep or at rest, these songs continue to come in the thoughts of the poet. So, what I have just explained is written here. The poem begins with the description of the tree. The tree is very dear to the poet because it is the only bond between the poet's past and present. The poet at present does not have her brother and sister, but the tree brings to her thought the happy times with her brother and sister. And the creeper has left deep marks on the trunk of the tree, that the creeper that has wound itself around the rugged trunk of the tree like a huge python, but the tree is so strong that it survives even the tight hold of the creeper and nothing happens to it. At night, the garden echoes with the jubilant song that has no end and that brings some melancholy thoughts of her past days. And it continues till dawn. The tree is described as being gallant because when all other trees would have died, this gallant tree has stood the test of time. Now we go to the second stanza. When first my casement is wide open thrown at dawn, my eyes delighted on it rest. So we can see a picture. This is just a symbolic picture. How the little girl opens the windows and she sees the casuarina tree and she is delighted to see it. And sometimes most in winter, on its crest, a grey baboon sits statue-like alone. And sometimes, mostly in winter, a baboon sits at the top of the tree. Baboon sits statue-like is again a simile. So the baboon sits like a statue. The baboon is like a statue. And the baboon watches the sunrise, while on lower boughs his puny offspring leap about and play, and far and near kokilas held the day. So when the baboon watches the sunrise, his little babies, what they do, they leap and play in the other branches of the tree. And from far and near the quail birds, they sing. And to their pastures wend our sleepy cows, and in the shadow on the broad tank cast by that hoar tree, so beautiful and vast, the water lilies spring like snow enmassed. And there are pastures, there are green fields where the cows wander. They move about and eat grass. And in the shadow of the broad tank cast by that hoar tree, that hoar old tree, the tank, on the tank, the shadow of that tree is cast. It looks so beautiful and vast. And in that shadow, the water lilies grow. There are a lot of lily flowers growing like snow enmassed. So they look like the snow enmassed. This is again a metaphor, like when there are some heaps of snow together, it looks white. So the water lilies are white in color, and they also look like snows together. The water lilies are growing in clusters which look like as if they are snow that has been gathered in one place. So the second stanza is basically a vivid description of the beauty of nature. And the poet continues to describe the life that prospers. She tells of the baboon that she sees the baboon's little ones who play in the branches of the tree, the lilies that grow, and mostly the shadow of the giant tree that falls in the water tank. That see what a beautiful picture the poet has drawn here, the imagery, the sensory imagery. The shadow of the giant tree falls on the water tank, and in this shadow, the water lilies that bloom, they look like as if it's snow clustered together. So, the liveliness, the jubilant song of the kokilas, those announce the garden's liveliness, and this shows how attached the poet was to the nature and to the casuarina tree. Now we go into stanza 3, but not because of its magnificence, dear is the casuarina to my soul. Beneath it we have played through years may roll, though years may roll. O sweet companions, loved with love intense, for your sakes shall the tree be ever dear. Blent with your images, it shall arise in memory, till the hot tears blind my ears. Now here, the poet is very categorically saying that it's not because of the huge presence of the casuarina tree that she is so close to it, but because of the sweet companions, the loved ones, the sisters, the brothers, the friends who were very close to her heart. That makes the presence of the casuarina tree so important. It's because of that happy moments that the casuarina tree invokes in her a feeling of happiness even at a time when she is at loss. So in memory, till the hot tears blind my eyes, and blend in the images of those happy times, the memories of happy times, the nostalgia of the happy times. What happens? Tears roll down our eyes. And my dear students, we all have wept at some point of our lives. So we know when tears come down, it feels hot to the eyes. So here she says, the hot tears blind my eyes. And when tear drops block our eyes, our vision becomes very hazy. And herein she says, the hot tear blind mine eyes. She doesn't get a proper view of things when tears block her eyes. What is that dirge-like murmur that I hear, like the sea breaking on a shingle beach? Is it the tree's lament and airy speech that haply to the unknown land may reach? So in these lines, she is speaking of the unknown land, which means France or Italy, where the poet has been for her studies for a few days. So when she hears the sea waves breaking on a shingle beach, the pebbles of a beach, she says that in that murmur, in that sorrowful murmur, she can hear something. And she says, is it the tree's lament? Is it the tree expressing its sorrow that the happiness that was once around that tree is no more? So that is perhaps reaching her even when she is in a foreign land. So here we see the attraction of the poet towards her homeland. Even when she is in a foreign land, she can hear that tree crying, lamenting. In what? Whenever she hears some noise or music of nature in this unknown land, that connects her to her native land, that connects her to her homeland. So, as we have already seen in stanza 3, the casuarina tree is very dear to her, not because of its magnificence, but because it reminds her of those happy days. And the tree, blended with the memory of them, gives her the images of intense love that they share and leaves the poet in tears. The poet cries, mourning for those lost souls as she goes down the memory lane, thinking of them. She imagines the tree shares her loss, which she hears as dirge-like murmur, resembling the waves breaking on a pebble beach. So, whatever sound she is hearing in a foreign land, she is connecting it with the cry of the tree, as if the tree is expressing its sorrow also and is being a companion to the poet's sorrow and nostalgia. Now coming to stanza 4, this is a very philosophical line, philosophical stanza. Unknown yet well known to the eye of faith. Ah, I have heard that wail far, far away in distant lands by many a sheltered bay, when slumbered in his cave the water wave, and the waves gently kiss the classic shore of France or Italy, beneath the moon, when earth lay tranced in a dreamless swoon. Unknown yet well known to the eye of faith. Here unknown means the land of the dead, where perhaps her siblings has passed away. We do not know, but it is still well known to us through our insights and perception of that place. So she says that even if it's unknown, it's actually well known through our perception. And she has been hearing some cry, some wail in distant lands. When slumbered in his cave the water wailed, it's not clear what the cry is for, what the wail is for. But the mention of water wraith, which means some mythical water spirits. So maybe it's the cry of them. When the classic shore means the shores of the sea beaches of France or Italy where she has been, when the waves gently come and touch the shore, touch the rocks, there is some noise which makes her feel that it's a cry. And when the earth is tranced, is sleepy in a dreamless rest, And every time the music rose before my inner vision rose a form sublime. Thy form, O tree, as in my happy prime, I saw thee in my own loved native clime. And she says that every time this music rose, the music of waves on the shore, she could see in her inner self, from her inner feelings, a sublime, a form which is extremely beautiful, extremely beyond the perception of natural beauty rose. What did rise? Thy form, O tree. So that form of the tree as in my happy prime, that image of the casuarina tree when she was in the prime of her happiness, when she was with her loved ones and her siblings. I saw thee. She saw thee here means the casuarina tree in my own love native clime. She saw it where? Placed majestically in her land, in her native clime, means India, her native land. So the casuarina tree not only reminds her of the happy times, but also when she is in isolation in a foreign land, away from her own motherland, this tree gives her refuge. This tree makes her feel at home on its remembrance. So we see everything that the poet hears in nature, every music that the poet hears or listens to in this foreign land connects her to the majestic casuarina tree. So here the explanation of the third stanza, the poet presents an in-depth connection with the tree. Why in-depth? Because in everything that she sees and feels, the image of the casuarina tree is evoked in her mind. Though through the image of wave, she takes us to a foreign land that is unknown yet well known. And here this unknown may mean the foreign land, here the unknown may mean the land, the place where after death people travel to. That is also unknown. But in our perception, in our inner self, perhaps it is a well-known place. And whenever the music of the waves touching the shores rises, it arouses the memory of the tree in front of the poet's eyes as she has seen in her childhood days. Now we come to the final stanza where the poet wants to do something for the casuarina tree. Therefore I fain would consecrate a lay unto thy honor, tree beloved of those who now in blessed sleep for aye repose, dearer than life to me. Alas, were they, mayst thou be numbered when my days are done, with deathless trees like those in Borodale, under whose awful branches lingered pale fear, trembling hope, and death the skeleton, and time the shadow. And though weak the verse that would thy beauty fain, O fain rehearse, may love defend thee from oblivion's curse. Now this is a beautiful stanza. It's telling how the tree is so majestic and so beloved and brings so many memories to her that she wants to do something for the tree. She wants to dedicate and build something for the tree, consecrate a lay. She wants to build something in the memory of the tree that would make it immortal. And with this, she brings in the reference of Borodale tree, which is a symbol of immortality, which are deathless trees, and which by the great poet William Wordsworth has been mentioned in Yew Trees, in his poem Yew Trees. So she wants this casuarina tree to be immortal like the Borodale trees. And she says the awful branches, under the awful branches of this Borodale trees, and she wants the casuarina tree also to be like that. Things like fear, trembling hope, shaken hope, death, the skeleton, and the time, the shadow, the transience of shadow. Like we know that time destroys everything that is past. But if we can build a memory of something to hold on to it, then the Borodale tree is like that, and she wants the casuarina tree also to like that, to defeat the ravage of time. And she says, my verse perhaps, a poem perhaps, is a weak means to keep the tree alive. So she seeks everybody that to keep the tree immortal, I need the love of everybody to keep the tree from oblivion's curse, to make the tree go into obscurity. So what does she want? A verse is not enough. A poem itself is not enough. She wants to do something. She wants to build something to make the casuarina tree immortal like the Borodale, the yew trees. And what she seeks is love. She wants love to defend this tree from going into obscurity. So here in the last stanza, the poet wants to make something in the honor and memory of the casuarina tree. She wants to give it eternity. Eternity for what? Eternity towards the memories of her beloved ones who are now dead but loved it then. She wants the tree to live long like those trees of Borodale. Here she is making a reference to Wordsworth yew trees. And she differentiates the trees of England from the casuarina tree also in expressing her emotions. The casuarina tree to her stands for that longing and happy memories, the nostalgia that takes her back to that happy memories. But the trees of England reflect her isolation. The trees here make her feel lonely. But when the trees here make her feel lonely, she goes back to the casuarina tree to hold back to. So the significance of Borodale in our casuarina tree lies in its allusion to Wordsworth's poem Yew Trees. This association connects Toru Dutt with Wordsworth and links her tree to the ancient immortalized trees Wordsworth wrote about. So therein we find another figure of speech here, allusion, which connects one thing to another more popular and important thing or event of the past. So here Toru Dutt is connecting herself and is connecting herself with Wordsworth and wanting to immortalize her casuarina tree like Wordsworth immortalized the Borodale in yew trees. The final lines of the poem emphasizes on the idea of a poem as a written memory being a weak means of remembrance. So as I told you, this verse or a poem may be a weak form of remembrance, of keeping memory of the casuarina tree. So she seeks love to protect the tree and her poem from time's destruction. So this is the summary. I am not going through it again. This is in a nutshell what we have now discussed stanza wise. And one thing here I would like to tell you that this poem is a depiction of the appearance of the tree, and its significance also tells us of the romantic period's emphasis on nature and emotion. There were writers, poets of the romantic poems or romantic period where emphasis was put on the attraction towards nature, attraction towards distant thing, and intense emotion that may not always be logical. So here we see that in the poem as we discussed all the stanzas. So here what she wants is that she immortalizes the tree through the poem, and she looks ahead to her own death. She knows that her deaths are, she knows that her death is also coming, and everybody of us will die at some point of time. So what the poet wanted was that when she was not there, when she died, the casuarina tree may be remembered just like the yew trees. So here the message of the casuarina tree is of unity. Unity of what? Unity of the poet with her past, her family, and also her native land, India. So the tree is a symbol of this unity, and it brings to her mind and soul the thought of her homeland and the thought of her siblings who are dead now. And the casuarina tree also symbolizes the poet's resilience and beauty despite hardships. So it is very hard for a sister to go on when her brothers and sisters die. But even in this hardship, even in these hard times, she took refuge to the casuarina tree. She evokes the beauty of the casuarina tree to bring back those happy memories. So we see here the tree is also a representation between the conflict of human and nature. And what is this conflict? We see even now that human beings destroys tree, destroys nature through their actions. But nature is always nurturing a broken soul and providing solace, just as we see it provided solace to the poet's very emotional and sentimental mind of loss, of great loss. And the creeper described as like a huge python winding around the tree also symbolizes the past and the weight of memories that cling to the present. When we live in the present, even if our present is happy, we cannot overcome the burden of the sorrowful things that already happened to us. So the creeper which was winding the tree, the huge tree, and leaving scar marks on it, also represents the weight of memories that was bringing sorrow to the poet's mind. In addition, she also reflects on how the tree native to India sustained her during her travels in Europe. The tree also reflects on how the poet lived through her loneliness, remembering the tree when she was in France and Italy. Now the poetic devices, the figures of speech, the personification, the tree is given life because the tree, when an inanimate object is given life, it's called personification. So the tree itself, when it is lamenting, when it is speaking, it is represented as a human being. So the tree itself is personified. The rest all, please go through the slide, because I have already, while going through and discussing the stanzas, have discussed all these. Now, before telling you thank you, I would want you to tell that feel the poem and read it. This poem doesn't only speak of Toru Dutt's emotions, but also connects each and every one us with some memories, some happy memories of the past, which we do not have at present. And we need to value those memories. And for your exams, you must go through the poem very carefully, go through every line of it, so that when you are there to write the answers and choose from the MCQs, you can be alert and you can be correct in choosing the right answer. MCQs is is very important in your life, but don't study a poem or a piece only for answering the question in examination, because our life is the biggest examination that we face. And to go through that examination, we need to perceive, understand, and feel everything that is in our syllabus. So, my dear students, wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Do your best to pass in your examination, your written examination, and above all, the examination of your life.